We're watching Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance in the nation's capital. We are joined by Brad Ashford. He is a member of the United States Congress representing the state of Nebraska. And sir, I'd like to speak with you about your new job.
Yes.
You spent 16 years in the only unicameral legislature in the entire nation. You are now part of a bicameral legislature in Washington, D.C.
It's different.
It's different. How is your new job?
You know, I'm thrilled to be here and I'm honored. Representing Nebraska, my family's been in the state since the 1850s,
Wow.
So we didn't make it out to California.
I was going to say they kept trying and they stopped.
We made it to Nebraska, but
Right. Not so bad.
We're glad we did. And
Right.
I mean, it's terrific. I mean, it's a challenge. Just the ability, the honor, really, to represent your state in this body is quite something.
But I do want to ask you more specifically about going from unicameral, nonpartisan, to bicameral, partisan.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look? Obviously, you know, you're.
Well,
in a caucus.
I was never in a caucus. When I came here the first day, I think we had a caucus meeting. Of course, I walked out of there with just thinking, why do we do this exactly? Because it's so foreign to the way we are. I mean, we don't pick sides in the legislature. We pick issues.
Right.
And I think that's probably where the biggest difference is. Instead of thinking about whatever the issue is, try to pick an issue and then think about coming together on a solution. We pick sides first.
Sure.
And then the issues will come around, but then the sides are so formatted.
Right.
So that's the biggest difference. And being able to break through that and talk to others. I actually worked here as a young person.
For whom, if I may ask?
Senator Roman Aruska.
From the state of Nebraska?
This was quite a few years ago.
Oh,
it was in the late 60s.
Wow, okay.
And it clearly, as I've been told and as I experienced as a young person, a lot different place.
Right. So I want to talk about one issue that the caucus, your caucus, is a bit divided on. And that issue is the question of trade. We are looking generally at creating a format whereby there can be a free trade zone for and with 12 different countries throughout the entire world, but including Australia and Japan and Vietnam and a lot of countries in between.
Mexico, Canada.
And it's interesting you mention that because it's on the heels of the NAFTA free trade agreement, which, depending on which side you're on, was either the best thing since sliced bread or not so much.
And we have, I believe, 12 trade agreements around the world. So this TPP, or Trans-Pacific Partnership, would supplant the agreements with those particular countries. So Mexico, Canada, which of course was NAFTA, would now come under this new TPP, which, quite frankly, one of the reasons why I like it is, and why I hope we get TPP done in the end, is that we do think about some of the shortfalls in the NAFTA agreement and suggest labor standards changes, environmental changes that were not in NAFTA. So, but I come from an ag state, and we export a lot of things. We have few people and lots of cows. I think we have 6 million cows and 1.7 million people. So we do a lot of exporting, and we already do export. I think we export almost $1 billion worth of cattle. We're one of the top exporting states, third or fourth or second exporting of beef states in the country. So these kinds of agreements, certainly TPP with Asia and with the Pacific Rim, where 40% of the people in the world live, it's great for us.
Do you feel as if, as we speak today, there are enough protections, the directives are clear enough to the administration that will be negotiating this on behalf of America, and presumably when it comes back to Congress, up or down vote, that it's clear enough that we can get the labor protections you desire, the environmental protections?
You've asked absolutely the right question. And the best way to answer that, I think, first of all, is one has to read the bill and the directions, to your point. And there are 144 pages of directions, and they go everywhere. They deal with everything from financial issues, customs issues, labor issues, with environmental issues, and with transparency. I think one of the concerns with NAFTA is it wasn't transparent. This is a very transparent process. So what will happen is, 90 days prior to the president signing this agreement potentially in the end, there would have to be a report to Congress, and then 60 days prior to that, the public will see the agreement.
The one area that does cause some concern, spooks people a bit, is the question of human rights. I mean, look, when we're dealing with Australia, when we're dealing with New Zealand, Canada, their human rights record's fine. But Brunei, Vietnam.
But Brunei is a sultanate, I guess.
Right.
It's a great question again.
Please, well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, these are good questions. I think the answer is that, there are really two ways to change the world. One is the bad way, through war and invasion, and we've always fought against that in our country. We've always been for liberation.
Right.
And then the second way is through trade. And through trade, we can change minds, we can change hearts, we can not necessarily dictate, our values to other countries, but we can certainly educate people on how we are. So I believe trade is part of that.
And let's talk about America's efforts to dictate our values, which we believe are the best values in the universe.
Right.
We have tried that, especially in the Middle East. And with, depending on your position, some success or a lack of success. I know you recently traveled to the Middle East, and I want to get a report from you about what your sense is of America's efforts to export democracy, and I say that without any type of position being taken, to the Middle East.
It was, we had a very interesting time, visited the leaders of Iraq and Afghanistan and Jordan and the Emirates and Kuwait. I think the idea that we can impose our exact replica of our form of government on any country is short-sighted. But as we look at the Middle East, there are different levels of similarity to our system. And that cannot be the only indicia. I think certainly we are strongly allied with Egypt, and there are concerns and doubts about some of the human rights issues there.
But I'm wondering if we are simply setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Well, we're never going to. I think what we have to do, and your point's well taken, is what I came back with is at least the desire expressed to me by these leaders is that the need to secularize their societies. Now that's in their own image. So women in the workforce, for example, women going to school, women's rights issues, which are clearly a problem in the Mideast, in many of the countries we visited. So there's an awareness, though.
Right.
There's an awareness.
But when you think about ISIS, when you think about some of the more radical elements of Islam, which is a faith that has beauty in it, to some, but the radical elements of Islam, they are not looking to create scenarios that build human rights for women. And so
no, but they aren't, and ISIS clearly is an outgrowth of. ISIS didn't just appear out of the blue a year ago. It was a 10-year, probably one would argue, 10-year process of radicalization of Sunni Arabs, Muslims in Iraq primarily, and in Syria, and that is a reality that we must deal with. I think what our role is in Congress, and certainly in the executive level, I came back with the idea or the sense that we need to make a clear statement to the American people. Number one, what are our military objectives? Number two, what are our social objectives? What do we want to see in the Middle East? And then thirdly, I think we must think about the impact of oil and the fact that the United States now has become the swing country in the oil industry, the gas business. So I think we have to think about that as well.
His name is Brad Ashford. He is a member of the U.S. Congress representing the state of Nebraska. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter Local Edition.